Hi everyone, and welcome to the SYSTRAcast podcast, where today we're filming the Next Gen Meets, where we're aiming to connect the next generation with leaders and emerging voices. And today, the Next Gen meets Riona.
Hi.
Welcome, and thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No.
This is exciting. This is something new outside of the day-to-day, isn't it?
Yeah, no, amazing. So just to kind of quickly get us started, could you kind of run us through your career so far, kind of starting from where you began and then what kind of position you're in now?
Absolutely. So, since the earliest stages of my education, I've always sort of focused on making a positive change, looking at the environment, sustainability. And actually, I can date back to when I was in secondary school, the sort of year 7, year 8, for anyone that knows that. And I was part of a school group called Eco Schools. So that made me very cool, very popular. And I was part of Eco Schools, and they looked at like turning lights off, making sure there was marketing around switching lights off, waste management. So basically, what I do now. And when I was looking at sort of what I'm interested in, what passion I have, and what I'm going to do at university, I selected geology and physical geography as my undergraduate. The lecturers were so passionate about the physical environment, specifically like geology, rock outcrops, that sort of thing. And yeah, I found a passion in there and chose any sustainability, any environmental modules I could. But actually, it was a lot of my family members that encouraged me to look into sustainability. So my father, for example, works in renewable energy, specifically wind turbines. And so he sort of said, sustainability is going to be the next big thing. You should maybe look into that. And so I did. And he was completely right.
So kind of looking at your time at SYSTRA, do you want, for people who don't know, just kind of summarize what your kind of day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, so I'm the Sustainability Lead at SYSTRA. I have been since September last year. And it has been such like a wonderful experience. It's something that I've always had an interest in. I actually remember looking at one of my old CVs, and the sort of the summary at the big top, what you aspire to be, is basically this job. So I was so happy to get the role. And it looks at, I think it could be encapsulated in the 3 pillars that we've recently launched, people, planet, purpose. So looking at planet, a lot of my role is around carbon reporting. And then the other pillar would be people. So I've worked with a couple of you on like social value, and we're looking at how we can monitor and manage that a little bit better with the Loop tool, for example. And it's been so interesting because before we didn't have monetary figures or tangible results to collect social value. So we were doing such great work, but no way of actually managing that. And then I guess the purpose pillar is like the responsible business side, which is like the travel survey, completing e-learning modules, preparing all the policies that we have in place to just make sure that we're regulated and responsible as a business. So nice. Like I get to do things like this that, you wouldn't otherwise get to do. So I love it.
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of tapping into so many different parts of the business to kind of all kind of encapsulate sustainability, carbon and everything.
Exactly.
You just touched on there. So you recently did the Sustainability Week, and where you were kind of sharing pieces of advice and looking into how SYSTRA can improve their sustainability. What kind of advice do you have for people kind of looking to be more sustainable, maybe on a personal level, but also on like a bigger scale as well?
We had so much engagement, which was so lovely to see. Lots of discussion and debate about carbon. And one of the activities we asked for everyone to do prior to the workshops was their carbon footprint, which is on the WFF website, really easy to find. And we did ask just everyone to complete that if they could. And yeah, it sparked a lot of interest and debate about how they might be above or below the carbon, the British average for carbon, maybe looking at different ways that they can manage that. So we did ask in sort of like a Slido interactive piece if everyone could come up with a personal pledge during that workshop. So, and we pulled them from different websites as well, just to spur some imagination. But it was typically like lower washing, eating less meat and dairy, buying secondhand, cycling to work or taking the public transport. Lots of different and more creative options were in there as well. And I just think it's so important that, you know, everyone gets involved in sustainability. We're doing such like great work now, but you know, there's still so much we can still do. And that applies to everyone, like not just within SYSTRA, it applies to everyone outside the business too. And in your personal lives, that we need to come together as it's going to affect all of us eventually, or already is. So, yeah.
And we've got ambitious targets. So I think we all kind of need to take it upon ourselves to do better and see what we can do to kind of all contribute positively to that.
Exactly. So SYSTRA is aligned with our UK government carbon net zero by 2050 goal, but obviously every business has their own targets and ambitions, and we can all work together, especially in our value chain, our supply chain, to do more.
Were there any kind of key points throughout your career so far that you think have kind of led you to where you are today?
Well, I would say that I had, like, when I first started, a really great line manager, shout out Jenny Jeffries, and she was a big advocate for, you know, doing things outside of my role, like my day-to-day role, perhaps keeping it interesting, you know, exploring the sustainability side where I had my admirations lie. And she actually pushed me to do lots of work like the STCF, that's a Sustainable Design Construction Framework, and you know, exploring conferences, presenting at conferences. And I was seconded to Old Oak Common. Was it 3 years ago now?
Wow.
And I know it flies by, scary. So I was responsible for like sort of managing, being a sustainability manager for some time there, while someone else was on secondment. And that was such a great experience. And Jenny was really pivotal in that because she, whilst she was losing a member of her team, she knew that that's where my ambitions lied. And it was such a wonderful experience, really good to explore a new site, learn new sustainability processes, meet a new team, and just generally immerse myself in something different. Like adapting to change is, it's a little bit daunting at first, but it's honestly some of the best things you can do to become more resilient.
Yeah. So when you were kind of navigating from your current team into a new team with new faces, like new structures and probably a lot of new topics that you hadn't touched on before, how did you kind of navigate that? And do you have any advice for people who may be wanting to go on secondment or kind of navigating that changing careers? Like how would you?
Yeah. I know it's one of those where I always say, you know, any opportunity that arises, you should definitely take, obviously within reason and the appropriate approval. But I think that's one of the best advice I can give is, you know, do whatever you can to explore your career or a different avenue that maybe you perhaps haven't thought about before, which is why I am where I am now. I would say, just as you would any other team, building a good rapport, speaking to them, you know, becoming a reliable member of the team so that you can all of you can deliver a project to its end point. Just being nice to one another, maybe going out after work, doing some sort of activity really reaffirms like you can build trust in these people and you can have a good relationship. And I think that's probably pretty key. And Old Oak Common was great. It had a wonderful community there where we did like sports days and other activities. The community team, the community engagement team, and HR are really good at like sort of managing those. So I would say just, you know, going in with some confidence, like building a team, but, you know, just being nice and reliable and just trying to excel in your own job will make sure that it's easy.
Yeah. And I always think like it's always so daunting getting out your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But in like hindsight, when you look back at it, as you say, like you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't make that leap. And it's sometimes those putting yourself out there it's tricky, but actually you grow into that position and you're always kind of looking to better yourself in that way.
You just adapt to whatever your surroundings are, whoever you're around. And I think that's a skill that you have to learn. Like it doesn't come naturally. It's quite scary at first, but you soon just develop this sort of resilience to and adaptability to change.
Do you have any kind of key takeaways from your secondment that you could share with us today? Something that you kind of came away from that experience thinking, wow, like I'm really glad I kind of got to experience that there.
I think it's everything that I learned under the sustainability manager role, obviously fed into this role now, and specifically at like project level, because now I look at strategy, at organization operational level. And so that was really interesting. We had like BREEAM applications where we had to look at all the criteria, audits as well. So that really helped this week, for example. I'd never been in an audit before until that secondment. And so I was feeling a bit more prepared in that sense. And just being at an actual site was interesting because it's such a massive scale. We've got a whole box that's been dug out and one with scrubs where the urban realm is, and it was just really, really interesting to be part of the project level. So I would recommend even, looking at secondments that are in different like geographical locations or are looking at a different project besides, our big one, which is the main work civils. HS2 line. So
and you touched on previously how you had like mentorship in those positions, and particularly you talked about your female line manager. I kind of want to delve into that a little bit deeper. How do you find that's really shaped your career and having someone supportive to look up to like that?
Yeah, definitely having Jenny at the very earliest stages of my career, because SYSTRA was only my second position and I started as like an environmental advisor, and having her in that senior position and seeing her in that position really helps sort of build the confidence that I could be, senior. I could get to that level. I can do it too. And she was wonderful in sort of like promoting me through awards, like the Women in Construction and Engineering Awards a couple of years ago, and also getting my chartership. Like she's been sort of the backbone in a lot of those things and supporting me in that way. And she's also really great at International Women's Day. So she will always provide some sort of speech or talk about, women in senior positions. And when I was doing my WISE award, the Women in Construction and Engineering Award, I was like discovering so much about women in senior positions, or just generally. So like 35% of women are in STEM, which is obviously quite a low number, because just generally construction and engineering is seen as a sort of male-orientated field. So I think having more females in senior positions, especially in the construction industry, regardless of your position, will really inspire that next generation, those younger girls, which is, again, bring it back to social value. If you speak to Laura Griffin, you can find out a lot more about the STEM ambassador work going into those schools and, educating the younger generation that construction engineering isn't scary. There's loads of jobs that you can do besides, manual labor or being out on site. There's a whole environment section or sustainability. That's what I try to do when I go into these schools, is like promoting that side too. I know I'm biased, but they're the type of things I would suggest.
So obviously you're part of the next generation leadership team, which means that in the last cohort you got a chance to work alongside the SL team decision making. You progressed some of your own initiatives alongside the rest of your cohort, which I think is something that this cohort of the next generation leadership team are really getting involved in at this point. How has that kind of shaped your career so far, and what were some of your biggest takeaways from the next generation leadership team?
So it was an amazing experience. I'm a big advocate for the NGLT, Next Generation Leadership Team. I think it's an amazing opportunity to work alongside senior leadership teams, senior staff, to really get an idea of the decision making and to work with projects that you were perhaps not being able to in your day-to-day role. But it's also great to speak to other disciplines and get to know other people in the business. As I've said, I'm a bit of a yapper, so I loved speaking to different people that I perhaps wouldn't. And of course, I can't go without mention that I built a really good relationship with individuals in the NGLT that means that I can rely on them even now. So anything time for carbon reporting, for bid writing, any time that I need some sort of like support, I know who to rely on, I know who to contact, and we're all happy to support each other in any way that we can. So yeah, NGLT was great for all of those things.
Yeah. I think one thing as well that's you touched on was really important is having kind of the younger voices involved in the decision-making process, and like how bringing that new perspective in can probably shape a lot of decision making.
Definitely.
Do you have any kind of examples of when you've kind of spoken up and had that conversation with someone in a position where maybe you weren't the most senior person in the room and it's kind of come into something?
Yeah, that's my role now.
Yeah.
And it can at first be a little bit challenging. You're trying to get used to like how do you address more senior individuals that have been at the company longer. But at the end of the day, they want to hear your voice, and you bring a variety and a diversity and maybe even creativity to those discussions. So we at the NGLT were like part of some big decisions. I remember one where we were sat around a really big table or the boardroom in Manchester, and we were just helping, like we went through some of the decisions we had to make at the time. And it was so interesting. Everyone got a chance to voice their own opinion. And I thought that was actually something that I'm going to not only take away, sort of making sure that everyone in the meeting rooms has a chance to speak, because some people might not just want to talk up, but have really good and valid points. So that's something I've learned from the NGLT. And definitely working now as like a sponsor in the NGLT, which is crazy. It's really nice to also hear what projects they have on and how we can support, and like just seeing their creativeness like this.
Yeah.
Like this podcast, for example, exactly like this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So looking forward for you then, what is next for Riona? Kind of, do you have anything lined up for the next years or anything?
Yeah. So I've had a busy time.
Yeah.
Like with the launch of the sustainability mission and just literally getting past 2080, but I will be going into a deep, dark cave for carbon reporting December and January to just make sure that we have all of that data in place, and for the group audit in February. And then, we will see from there. But it's always so interesting, like I said, going back to how ambiguous the role is. You never know what's coming around the corner and what next legislation's in place, or what else we need to support group with, or what else we can do better in terms of like winning work. And so that's what I love. I'm not sure. You'll see.
And I think as well, part of the fun, isn't it, is that you don't know what's around the corner, and you kind of tackle that when it comes around.
And we will obviously have to do the annual updates of like all of the sustainability policies reports and the mission, and it's interesting that can be adapted too. It's important that we continue to update that and make it better, and always continually improve what we do at SYSTRA.
Brilliant. Any kind of final pieces of advice for people who are kind of early in their careers, something that you wish you might have wished to know if you were starting out?
Whenever I have like worked with younger people, I just think it's such a great opportunity you have the whole career like laid out in front of you. Don't feel like restricted just because you've decided that that's your role. Explore other avenues too, so that you really know, like, actually I'm really interested in this, or I maybe prefer doing this, or I fancy a bit of a change. Like, you're starting out your career, it's absolutely fine to also adapt to change, go on that secondment or change roles. I think I've changed roles 5 times in SYSTRA, and that's one of the perks of working for SYSTRA, is they will support you in that too. So I would say adapt to change.
Brilliant. Yeah, that was great advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you all for listening. You'll see these episodes posted on the SYSTRAcast and wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you, Riona, so much for coming to talk to us today. It's been lovely, and we'll catch you all later. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.